Good evening, everyone. This is Sudhanya Gupta from Hunting, Gathering to Growing Food. This is chapter number 2, class 6, NCERT according to NCERT syllabus. Welcome to my channel. After this lesson, students know about people who lived in subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago. Today, we describe them as hunter-gatherers. The name comes from the way in which they got their food. Generally, they hunted wild animals, caught fish and birds, gathered fruits, roots, nuts, seeds, leaves, stalks and eggs. Hunter-gatherers moved from place to place. There are many reasons for this. First, if they had stayed in one place for a long time, they would have eaten up all the available plant and animal resources. Therefore, they would have had to go elsewhere in search of food. Second, animals move from place to place, either in search of similar prey or, in the case of deer and wild cattle, in search of grass and leaves. That is why those who hunted them had to follow their movements. Third, plants and trees bear fruit in different seasons, so people may have moved from season to season in search of different kind of plants. Fourth, people, plants and animals need water to survive. Water is found in lakes, streams and rivers, while many lakes are perennial with water throughout the year. Others are seasonal. People living on their banks would have to go in search of water during the dry seasons, winter and summer. Archaeologists have found some of things hunters-gatherers made and used. It is likely that people made and used tools of stone, wood and bone, of which stone tools have survived best. Some of the stone tools were used to cut meat and bone, scrap bark from trees and hides animal skins, chop fruit and roots. Some may have been attached to handles the bone or wood to make spears and arrows for hunting. Other tools were used to chop wood, which was used as firewood. Wood was also used to make huts and tools. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in climate of the world. With the shift to relatively warm conditions in many areas, this led to the development of grassland. This is turn led in an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, cattle, animals that survive on grass. Those who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding seasons. It is likely that this helped people to start thinking about herding and rearing these animals themselves. Finishing also become important. This was also time when several grains-bearing grasses, including wheat, barley, and rice, grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. Men, women, and children probably collected these grains as food and learnt where they grew and when they ripened. This may have led them to think about growing plants on their own. In this way, people become farmer. People could also attract and then tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelters. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestors of the dog. Later, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the campus where they lived. These animals, such as sheep, goats, cattle, and also the pig, lived in herds, and more of them ate grasses. Often people protected these animals from attack by other wild animals. This is how they become herders. A new way of life. If you plant a seed, you will notice that it takes some time to grow. This may be for several days, weeks, months, and some cases year. When people began growing plants, it meant that they had to stay in the same place for a long time, looking after the plants, watering, weeding, driving away animals and birds till the grain ripened. And then the grain had to be used carefully, as grain had to be stored for both food and seed. People had to think of ways to storing it. In many areas, they began making large clay pots or wove baskets or dug pits into the ground. Animals multiply naturally besides. If they are looked after carefully, they provide milk, which is an important source of the food and meat whenever required. In other words, animals that are reared can be used as a store of food. Archaeologists have found trust the huts or houses at some sites, for instance, of Burzahum. People built pit houses with which were dug into the ground with steps leading into them. This may be provided shelter in cold weather. Archaeologists have also found cooking huts both inside and outside of huts, which suggests that depending on the weather, people could cook food either indoors or outdoors. Stone tools have been found from many sites as well. Many of these are different from early Paleolithic tools, and that is why they are called Neolithic. These include tools that were polished to give a fine cutting edge, and mortars and pestles used in the grinding grain and other plant produce. Mortars or pestles are used for grinding grain even today, several thousand years later. At the same time, tools of the Paleolithic types continued to be the made of the use. Remember, some tools were also made of bone. Many kinds of eaten pots have also been found. These were sometimes decorated and were used of storing things. People began use pots cooking food, especially grains like rice, wheat, lentils, that now become an important part of diet. Besides, they began weaving clothes using different kinds of material, for example, cotton that could not be ground. Did things changes everywhere and all at once? Not quite. In many areas, men and women still continue to hunt and gather food, and elsewhere, people adopted farming and herding slowly over several thousand years. Besides, in some cases of people try to combine these activities doing different things during different seasons. So thank you so much. I hope you all learned something from this lesson. So keep please watching. Please subscribe my channel and share it. Until then, good night.